G'day and welcome to the Thunder from Down Under podcast. I'm your host, Graham Solomon. And as always, hit the like and the love button to pump our guest up, to get them pumped up for coming on the show. And go to the Graham Solomon Thunder from Down Under YouTube channel and smash that subscribe button. Hit the bell icon so that you can be notified when we go live with special guests like we've got today. Today I've got a guy that is in the virtual wholesaling business. He's had a long 10-year career with over 600 deals. His name is Chris Logan. He's a virtual wholesaler. He's also an educator, mentor, and a coach. Chris, welcome to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Graham, thanks for that awesome introduction, and I'm really excited to be here and just share some value with your audience.
That's awesome, Chris. I've been following you, seeing some of your stuff, and it's a big topic. Virtual wholesaling is massive now. Could you just give us a little bit of an intro into your backstory first off, and then how you actually got into where you are now in the virtual wholesaling industry?
Sure, yeah. So great question. So my wife and I started this business together 10 years ago. And the reason we started it was because we were both working a 9-to-5 in corporate America, grinding away, working to build somebody else's dream. And we just knew that there was more out there for us, but we just weren't sure exactly what that was. So I actually just finished reading the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Poor Dad. And I was over at my wife's apartment and I was checking my email and I saw a banner ad for saying Robert Kiyosaki was coming to town with one of the real estate seminars. So I didn't want to go by myself, had her come with me. And we went, and I was just totally blown away by the information they gave us, really the foundation that they talked about in real estate, how you can get started without having large amounts of money in the bank, or didn't have to have amazing credit or anything like that. You could just get started and you could make money in real estate. So it piqued our interest enough. So we went to the next day. And then from there, they kind of drew all these different strategies on the board, how to get started. Wholesaling was one of those. We saw it. It made total sense. To a total piece of paper, you could flip that for tens of thousands of dollars without buying the property yourself. And we were floored by that. So we hustled to get our first deal. It took us roughly about 6 months to get our first deal. Then after that, we really started diving in. And then about 5 years into our journey, we switched 100% to virtual. So this was 2 years before COVID. So we basically took the wholesaling model, flipped it on its head, and said, we're going to do this over the phone without driving to meet sellers, without meeting buyers at properties, and we're going to do this 100% virtually. And that's where our journey began. And then fast forward 5 years out, we grew our company to over 7 figures. And now we are run 100% virtual, and we close deals over the phone.
That's pretty awesome. The actual change to virtual wholesaling, how did the sellers go? How did people that you were ringing respond to that when they we'll come out to the property, and you said, no, look, we don't do that? What was that? Was that initially a hard transition, or you just had something in place to be able to, I guess, answer that objection?
Yeah, so when we switched was 2 years before COVID. So now, the great thing about now is sellers are 100% used to real estate companies buying properties over the phone. You have the Open Doors, the OfferPad, the Zillow Home Offers, all these guys where that's 100% completely normal. So now it's easier. They don't really have as many objections they used to. But 2 years before that, right, sellers were like, well, wait a second, I got to meet you at the property. Like you're just going to buy it sight unseen. That doesn't make any sense to me. It's like having to overcome all these hurdles, right? But we have rebuttals that we would have in place, and we kind of overcome their objections. But one of the things we did is we said, okay, we're not just going to flip the switch and all of a sudden we're virtual, right? We were going to gradually ease into this. So we switched. So if anyone is out there and you're thinking about going from local wholesaling to virtual, this is how we did it. And this is the way that maybe I'd recommend for you to do it if this is something you're going to do, right? But basically, we started doing 75% of our wholesaling local, 25% virtual. Then once we got comfortable with the process, we then went 50-50, 50% virtual, 50% local. And then we gradually scaled up to 100%, and we were 100% over the phone. And our main rebuttal or comeback for sellers who would say, oh, well, you can't, I'm not going to sell you my house unless you come see it. Say, Mr. and Ms. Seller, I appreciate you want us to come to your house. But unfortunately, that's not our process, right? So if you are serious about selling, then, we can revisit the offer that we gave you, and then we can talk about how to move forward from there, right? And then one of the things we have is we actually have local relationships with realtors where they act as our boots on the ground and we have them go to the property. So we're not going to be there. We're going to make the offer, but a member of our team will be meeting you at the property to take pictures, shake your hand.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, as you said before, once COVID hit, people didn't want you anywhere near their properties, and there was a bit of a issue for realtors because they had an issue. They did, obviously sellers didn't want people, that may have COVID going through their properties. So then all of a sudden it gave wholesalers a little bit of an edge, virtual wholesalers a bit of an edge, because you could actually use that as a selling point. Look, we don't have to come. We can comp it. We've got a process, got all this thing in place. So, I mean, you're already ahead of the game. You were 2 years ahead of the game, so you'd already had all your systems and structures in place. So, do you want to just go through some of those systems and structures, initially in the early days, and even stuff like objection? Like you've said a few objections there, but just what you found you needed to put in place to get started. Once you started really switching across to virtual.
Yeah, so great question. So the first thing that you want to do, if you're going to go virtual, right, is you want to pick an area, okay? So you can go virtual in your home area, even if it's a property's 30 minutes up the road. You have to put clear boundaries and guidelines in place that it's not your process. You don't drive to properties anymore, and you either do this virtual or you don't do it at all, right? And once you have that mentality, you got to stick to it, because certain sellers, they're going to be like, well, I'm not going to sell you my property unless you guys come out. Mr. I totally understand I totally understand how you feel. I'm not the one who specifically comes out, but we will have a member of our team come out and take pictures of the property. That'll be our next steps. And they're like, oh, okay, someone's going to come out. Yes, someone's going to come out, right? So you want to make sure that you identify the territory first, right? So if you're thinking about going virtual in another area, the main thing you want to look at is you want to look at, do a Google search for the population, right? So you want to have a minimum of 250,000 people in the area that you're going into. So if you're looking at starting in a county in a different state, get that county name, put it county, and say, population, Hillsborough County, Florida, and then it'll come back and tell you the population. If that's at least 250,000, then you're good, right? The second site is you want to go to Google again, and you can search that says median home price, and then Hillsborough County, Florida, right? You're going to see a Zillow link, and you're going to click it, and it's going to come up with the median home price. That needs to be at least 200,000. Let me explain what that is, though. So the median home price, if you have house on a timeline, the far left is the very cheap houses, the far right is the $1 million houses. The median home price is the middle home price, the one in the middle, the most common house type sold, right? So you want that to be at least 200,000, because if it's less than 200,000, that could mean there's not enough demand there. It could mean it's a heavy rental area where not a lot of buyers are looking to buy properties and flip them. They're looking to buy and hold them, right? And then it also could mean it's a very rural area, right? Rural areas, you'll have no problem putting a contract together with a seller, getting them to say yes, but you're going to have a big problem when you go to try and sell those properties because there's not a lot of cash buyers. So I have found that combination of the 250,000 population, 200,000 median home price, that is the combo where you can have no problem getting properties under contract, and you'll sell them too, which is super, super important, right? So once you got your territory in place, the next thing that you want to do is you want to find a local title company or a local real estate attorney that is familiar with working with wholesalers. And the best way to find this is by going to a local Facebook group and typing in the area you're going into, and then real estate investors. What'll come up is all these Facebook groups, join all of them for your area, and you can simply ask, hey guys, who's the best title company to work with or attorney to close wholesale deals? And they will tell you. The person that gets recommended 3 times, that's what you want, right? So that's your local power team, right? So you have your title company, you have a real estate attorney. Some states, they require you to close with a title company, some with a real estate attorney, but you can get those questions answered just by asking around in the Facebook groups, right? And that's important because those people are actually going to be the third-party company that transfers ownership from your sellers to your buyers. So that's how a real estate transaction is done. So if you're brand new and you're like, what's a title company? It's just simply a third-party company that transfers ownership from your seller to your end buyer when you bring a buyer for that deal, right? So the next thing you want to do is you want to have a relationship with a local realtor. So these realtors are going to be your property inspectors. So they're going to be the ones that go to your properties and they take pictures of your properties. We usually recommend 50 to 100. And that will give you an idea of the condition of the property. And you're not going to do this until after the seller has accepted your offer, right? So you get that property under contract, send out your property inspector, you see those pictures, and you can see if you need to adjust that number that you've made to the seller. But that's the big points that you want to have in place before you start virtual wholesaling, because you want to make sure you have a way to get pictures of the property. You want to know who you're going to close with, so you can put that on the agreement that you're going to send the seller, right? And it's good to have a relationship with a real estate attorney just in case anything goes sideways with some of your buyers or sellers.
Yeah, that's absolute gold. We call them thunderbolts. If you hit us with a heap of thunderbolts on with that is gold. Like, you need to, those stats that you talk about with with a market that's got enough population, all of that sort of stuff, so that you actually can have buyers. Because it's one thing to get, like you said, getting a contract, but it's another thing moving the contract and setting yourself up for success with that method.
100%.
Just a question about I just would like you, if you could, Chris, just to let the audience know the importance, why it is so important to get a wholesale-friendly title company, say if it's a title company, and how, if you don't do your due diligence there, you can blow your deal up if you just use a generic title office that just doesn't understand wholesaling.
Yeah, so no, great question. So the reason why you want to work with a title company that's familiar with wholesaling is because they can really blow up the deal if they don't know how to navigate the transaction, right? What do I mean by that? I'll give you an example. It's not common for a seller to be on the same email chain with the title company as your buyer that you're bringing to the table. That can be very confusing to the seller. So it's very important that when you ask, when you are looking to work with a title company, number one, you go and get a company that's referred by another local investor. Okay, so that's going to solve a lot of problems there. But if you just go to Google and search for local title companies in your area and you're calling, you're going to want to ask some questions. And one of the questions is, are you guys familiar with wholesale transactions? Do you work with a lot of wholesalers? If they're like, well, we've done one before, wrong. Don't move forward with them, right? You want to have the title company, the response you're looking for is, oh yeah, we do tons of wholesale transactions. We probably do at least 30 to 50 of those a month. Bingo. That's who you want to work with, right? And so you want to make sure they're familiar with assignments and double closes. If they ever ask you what those are, then not the title company for you and move on. But again, Facebook groups are the best way to find these title companies because you can get them referred by a local realtor or an investor. And the rule of three is you get 3 people that recommend the same one in the comments, then that's who you want to go with.
Yeah, you can generally, and then generally those 3 or more people sing their praise, say, oh, best, do not use anyone else. You can really see the difference when you do a post like that. And the other thing, just I'd love you to touch on, Chris, is, having boots on the ground that's actually a realtor that knows the local area, and the professionalism is really good too, isn't it? And like you said, they're used to taking photos, they're used to meeting people on site. So that's another key point too, isn't it?
Oh yeah, for sure. So the reason we work with local realtor, and some people use like third-party companies that take pictures, like BPO Flow, I think is one of them. Thumbtack, they use these other services. I don't like those simply because a realtor, like, we'll send realtors like a checklist of photos to take a picture of, like angles we want, rooms we want, things like that. But realtors, they take pictures of properties every single day, right? So you're not looking for anything professional here. We're talking using their iPhone, going around taking pictures of the things that we want, right? And so realtors, number one, they're familiar with taking pictures. They know how to navigate that working with sellers. And the great thing is realtors, some people might be like, no, I don't want to use a realtor, but a realtor is bound by a code of ethics. So meaning if they're going out there to take pictures for you, they're not going to go to that seller and say, hey, let me list your property, because that would be against the code of ethics and they can't do that, right? So even so, if it makes you feel more comfortable when you're talking to the realtor, hey, just make sure when you go out the property, you don't hand them your business card or anything like that. If they ask, you're just with our company and that's it, right? And it just makes things go very smooth. But realtors are amazing to work with. Not only can they take pictures of your properties, they can also bring you amazing buyers for your deals. So I love working with realtors. Yeah,
that's a good point too, is they've generally got a Teledex of buyers as well, people looking for properties, flippers and investors and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, great point, that one at the end especially. Moving on, just, with your marketing, how important how important is marketing to virtual wholesaling, especially maybe if you do your analysis, you find your market, and then you're ready to market. And also, if you could just go into what your favorite, maybe two marketing channels that you like.
Yeah, so marketing is really important, right? So when you're going to be going into a new virtual territory, what I typically recommend, okay, unless that territory has been proven, like let's say you have a coach or mentor and he says go here because I already know this is amazing. If you're going in cold, right, and you want to test out a new area, I recommend pulling 4 to 6 zip codes from the territory that you're going to go into, right? Start with 4 to 6 zip codes in the county you're going to go into, and do some type of low cost marketing channel for that those zip codes. So that could be cold calling. Cold calling is great. Texting, that could be great too, right? If you want to send direct mail, you can, but you want to make sure you know how to do that before you do it, because direct mail can get expensive if you don't know what you're doing. But I love cold calling because cold calling, there's virtually no cost to picking up the phone. Now we have people that dial for us and get leads for us. But take those 4 to 6 zip codes, put those through what's called a skip tracing service, so you can get phone numbers for those property addresses, and then either you call or have someone on your team call, and then that way you can kind of see the types of leads you have coming in. And if you're liking the quality of the leads, you're liking the area that they're in, then from there you can say, okay, great. Now that I got leads coming in, I'm going to expand either their zip codes, or I can wait till I get my first deal, get that closed, reinvest that money into marketing, and grow my territory there and add more zip codes. But if you take that approach, it's going to make it to where you're going to be very conservative with the money that you're spending, and you're going to make sure that you're going to get the highest return on the investment that you're investing in that marketing. So it's not as a gamble; it's more of like a predictable thing, right?
Yeah. So, like in your business, Chris, like you're up and running, obviously. So, once you're up and running, you use multiple streams. Like you might send some direct mail, do some cold call campaign, and every now and then maybe do something else, like a bit of Facebook advertising or something like that. Do you sort of, or if one thing's really working, do you just stick with it?
Yeah, so this is another thing too. So I recommend mastering one marketing channel. So if you're just getting started, mastering one marketing channel. If you've been doing this for a while, I would not recommend adding multiple marketing channels until you got one down pat. The problem that a lot of wholesalers have that I see is they add too many marketing channels too fast. None of them are working really well. They're kind of just okay, and they're really struggling to make more money than they have spent like going out, right? So they're spending more money than they have coming in, or it's very close. So they think they're making money, but they're really not, right? So what we did when we first went virtual, one of the big shifts we did was we used to be 100% direct mail. We went all in on cold calling. I said, I'm going to learn this, and I'm going to know it better than anybody, right? I'm going to master the cold call, right? And so that's what we did. So I really committed myself to that. And I dialed myself for the first like 3 to 6 months that we were making cold calls, just to kind of get a feel for it, so I could understand it and I could train someone else how to do it. Then I started putting a team in place, and I hired 2 or 3 people to make calls for us. Eventually it came to 10 people, and we started our own call center in Bangladesh. And we went all in on that. And let me tell you, you can get to 7 figures or close to it with one marketing channel. Most people think you need 5 or 6. You don't, right? So start with one marketing channel, really commit to it, learn it better than anybody else, and then add the second one. Again, first, it's been cold calling for us. That's been great. Texting has been a bit unpredictable. Sometimes it's working, sometimes it's not. It's all over the map. So I would not recommend that as your core marketing strategy. But the other marketing channel I like outside of cold calling is direct mail, because it's predictable. If you send out a certain number of pieces, you're going to get a certain percentage of people are going to respond. Out of those, you're going to get a certain number of calls. And out of those, you're going to have a certain amount of people that say yes. So it's a very predictable channel. That's why I like it. And that's why I like cold calling too. But cold calling 100% is my number one channel.
And do you think that that's a real benefit, jumping in for a period of time and learning stuff within your business, doing it yourself? So then when you do go to train people, you know the little nuances of all of those things. Do you think that's a good thing, or what's your take on that?
So what I would say is this, right? It's twofold. So if your budget is small, then I would say yes. Or if you don't know a reliable service that could do the marketing for you, right? And they have a track record of success, right? So if your budget's small, or you don't know a company that you can work with that has a track record of success, then I would say yes, doing it yourself, learning the ins and outs of it, and then hiring someone to replace you doing it, so that way you don't have to do it, like an overseas virtual assistant that can make the calls for you, as an example. Where we were different is I planned on, at the time when we started, there was no companies out there that were really good that offered cold calling reps. Right now, there's a handful of companies that are out there that are pretty decent. But it's actually a service we offer to our coaching clients. We decided to take our service and kind of launch it to them. When it comes to cold calling, right? I wanted to build this thing from the ground up, so I wanted to learn every aspect of it. So when I did it, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this myself because I'm going to build a team, and now I'm going to know how to train them, because you can't train someone to do something you don't have to. So if it involves you training somebody, then you have to do it yourself. But if you can have a reliable third-party company, put someone in place to do it, and they have a track record of success, and they send you reports on exactly what you're getting and how many leads and all that, and you're making more money than what you got going out, then that's a win.
That's a win, yeah. And what about you get your leads coming in? How do you manage your lead flow? Because that's pretty important as well, like to make sure that you manage your lead flow, and not everyone is ready to sell at that point. What do you find the best method to manage your lead flow?
Yeah. So what we do is we have a Podio. Podio is a free CRM that you can get out there. On a CRM, just a database to store leads. And basically, our cold callers, they submit our cold call leads through a web form. It drops it right into our CRM. And once our team sees a new lead come in, they pick up the phone and they call that seller. You want to get back to your leads within an hour maximum, right? Ideally within 30 minutes that it comes in, because that's the hottest time. But you want to make sure an hour maximum, because if you wait longer than an hour, the leads kind of go cold. It gets really hard to get the sellers back on the phone, and you're kind of spinning your wheels and starting all over again. So that's what we do. So they submit the leads through a web form, drops into a CRM. Our team picks up the phone and calls.
Yeah, beautiful. So you've got systems in place all the way along.
Yeah.
And that takes me to the next sort of point, like with acquisitions and closing, which is, pretty important part of it. You can close a deal and get the contract under contract. Yeah. Did you do that for a while? Did you become really good at that, and then obviously outsource it or train someone to take over from you?
Yeah. So here's the thing. So acquisition. So when you're going to hire someone to come in and start taking over the calls for you and making offers to the sellers, that's a very, very important position, because that drives the money in your business. And you want to make sure you do it at the right time, because sometimes you can take all the steps forward you took forward, like you can take a step back if you put someone in the role who is not qualified to be able to do it, right? So I recommend that you don't hire someone to do that until you're consistently doing like 3 deals a month. Once you're at 3 deals a month, then you can hire someone to do that. Until then, it's 100% you. It's got to be you, and you're always going to be the best at it in the beginning like that. So that's what I recommend. But how it worked for us is my wife and I started the business together. We both overlapped each other for a long time, right? And we've said this is silly. We're a team, and we're not leveraging the team. Like, we're doing everything twice, basically, right? I would go out to seller appointments with her. I'd call sellers. She'd call buyers. And so we were overlapping a lot. So a big game-changing thing that happened for us was when we settled into our strengths. I realized that she was way better at acquisitions than I was. And acquisitions, guys, if you're brand new, it's just simply calling sellers and making offers over the phone and getting a contract. That's all it is, right? So she was way better at that than I was, right? Because I'm more of like a numbers guy. I work great with buyers. I love buyers. I love selling deals, right? And so we said, okay, that's going to be the territory that you own. And then I'm going to focus on the property sales and selling deals and networking with buyers. That's when things really exploded, because we were both able to work in our strengths. And eventually, I went out and hired someone to replace me selling the deals, right? But that is probably the last thing that you want to hand off, is having someone else sell the deals, because that's probably one of the most important positions, right? That's something the owner of the company needs to do, until I would say you're probably at anywhere from 5 to 7 deals a month consistently. That's when you want to hand that off. But in the beginning, it's all you. It's one of the funnest parts of the business, and I love dealing with buyers.
Yeah, and like you said, that's your cash flow. That drives your business, doesn't it? So you can't have that fall over at any stage, or else it can be game over if you don't get onto it quick. The other thing too is contract. Like, once you've got something under contract, especially in a virtual market like with the seller, managing their expectations, getting them across to the closing table. Did you have a strategy in place for that? Did you like have certain things, or what did you put in place, especially in the virtual wholesaling days when you sort of got a contractual model for that as well?
Okay, so for selling the deals.
For once, basically, just communication with the
Keeping the seller comfortable throughout the process.
through
100%.
through to closing, because I think a lot of people drop the ball. There they go. I've got it under contract. I'm trying to find a buyer. And forget that there's someone sitting on the other end waiting. They don't sort of, I suppose, massage the deal through to closing.
Yeah.
Did you find that when you started, did you get onto that pretty early and put something in place?
Yes. So, okay. So I'm so glad. This is an amazing question, by the way. So this is a spot that a lot of new virtual wholesalers really get stuck at. Okay. Because they will talk with the seller, they'll put the deal under contract. And then what will happen is they won't continue to keep in contact with the seller or let the seller know next steps. And so the sellers ghost them. And so they can't get the seller back on the phone. The seller signed a contract, but the seller is, again, you can't reach them. And so they're probably talking to another investor that's going to make them more comfortable and sign. So one of the biggest things that you can do to overcome this from happening is always be letting your sellers know next steps. Okay, once you got the purchase agreement signed, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I want to let you know that we're excited to work with you and we're looking forward to getting this closed. So the next steps are going to be X, Y, and Z. For us, it's getting pictures taken of the property. And then once you get pictures taken, okay, so the next steps after the pictures, when we got those, the title company is going to be reaching out to you, asking you questions about some things they need to make sure that we are clear to close and we can get this property done within the time frame we've agreed to. Sound good? Yep, that sounds great. I'll reach out to you if you have any questions. I want this to be an open door policy. You can ask me some questions, and then that way we just stay in constant contact. And I'm here for you if you need anything, right? And so when you're constantly telling these sellers next steps, right? That makes them feel comfortable, because you got to think, people fear the unknown. They fear what they don't understand. So if you're constantly telling people, hey, this is the thing that's going to happen next, this is what's going to happen next, they feel comfortable and confident because you've given them a roadmap for how things are going to go from beginning to end. When you don't do that and you don't tell sellers what's going to happen next, they get very concerned. They get very worried. Did I sell for the right price? Did I not sell for the right price? My realtor, who's my neighbor, says I should have sold for more. Oh my gosh, this guy, I've never even met this person. Is he a scam? All these things start going through their mind. And then they have some local yokel that comes up to them and says, hey, I just shook your hand, stood in your living room, and I'm going to give you $5,000 more than what this person's giving you. Why don't you go with me? And they're like, you know what? Let's do it. I don't know what's happened. I haven't heard from this guy in a week. Let's do it, right? So keeping them on track and giving them a roadmap so they understand what's going to happen and what end, setting the stage for how the communication is going to go, and just being approachable and available is really the key to making sure your deals stay on track.
Yeah, and use little things, even shoot a text message, just little questions for touch points. It's like sales. The more touch points you've got along there, the more comfortable and familiar they come. So, yeah, no, that's a great advice there. Let's get to the buyers list. The buyers list, which can trip a lot of new wholesalers up. They're too busy. They sort of go, right, I want to go out and get this deal. I'm pumped up. And then they get a deal and go, oh, hang on, I haven't got a buyer, which, probably 6 months ago and back to 2 years ago, it wasn't too bad because it was a hot market. At the moment, buyers are sort of a little bit harder and a bit fussier now. So what's your process and the importance of building a buyers list?
Yeah. So buyers list is really important, right? So, we have a method called FYBF, meaning find your buyer first. So if you're a wholesaler, right? If you're brand new, you should be building your buyers list first. You should be reaching out to buyers. One of the best ways to do this through Facebook groups. You're going to want to go ahead and network with realtors, cash buyers, and wholesalers, right? Wholesalers have deals, have buyers that they can put more eyes in your deals. Realtors have more buyers they can put more eyes in your deals, and a cash buyer can buy the deal, right? So all three of those are important to have on your list. So I recommend adding 5 of those a day to your list. And if you do that, that'll keep the drop deals away. Where you get these buyers is Facebook groups. Facebook groups can be amazing. And if you just solely focus on that one free strategy, you can really blow up your buyers list. All right. So you're doing that. You're talking with your buyers. You're finding what they want, and then you're just going out and getting what they want. The business becomes so much easier. In the beginning, when I first started, I lock up a deal. I had no buyer. I had no idea where I'd find buyers, and I just prayed that I could move the deal. What a stressful way to run the business, right? And a lot of people still run it that way to this day, you know. But what I found was so much easier and I had so much more peace with the business is when I already knew who my buyer was because I found them first, right? Then I got what they want, and then I just simply brought them what they want. It made everything much easier in the business, to be honest, more enjoyable because I felt like I could perform on the commitment I made to the seller. And on top of that, I was building great relationships and I had confidence knowing that I could get the deal sold, right? Because a lot of times when people say, if you find a good deal, it'll sell itself, that's just like the worst advice ever because most new wholesalers have no idea what a good deal is and much less how to even go about selling it if they had one, right? So,
well, I mean, most people that have been in the business for as long as you and you see successful people out there, they have got a lot of really good buyers that are long-term buyers that are building portfolios, that are doing stuff like that. So, and they become almost like friends to them, and they go out, like you said, and get deals. And the people are there with open arms waiting for the deal, saying, bring it to me first. I want to see it first. So it becomes a little bit of competition then. Like people, like, I want it first. I want exclusive, and they'll pay you what it's worth. You know what I mean? I'm trying to haggle with you. So the buyers list is very important, and I think, like you said, like reverse engineering it and having it that you've already got those buyers sitting there waiting. It's just so much better than just getting a deal and going, oh yeah, what do I do now? Especially when you're new, because that's probably the most stressful part of wholesaling when you're new, isn't it?
It is.
Been with a contract and then going, wow, what happens if I can't? I mean, there's probably a lot of people that have had sleepless nights over that. Going, what happens?
I did first time. It's like I lock up a deal and I'm like, oh god, I'm excited I got a deal, but man, I really want to make sure I get this sold so I can honor my word to the seller. And what if I make their situation worse because I can't sell it? And things totally changed for me when I got two buyers that were amazing. One guy was a wholesaler. He's probably the biggest wholesaler in my market. And he's like, Chris, if you bring me a deal, he's like, and it meets these parameters, he's like, I can get it sold hands down every time, right? So we're like, okay, that's the lens we're going to put through all the future properties. And then the second guy was really helpful because he gave me specific zip codes. He's like, if you buy in this zip code, this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for houses like this that are within this build year or higher. I'm not looking for anything like this, and I like this. So all we did to change our success to going from one deal in 6 months to no deals to multiple deals a month and then growing to where we're at now is we started listening to what the buyers wanted first. And then we're like, okay, great. We're going to go get that and then bring it to them. And like clockwork, they'd move forward with it. Now, unless there was something crazy going on with the property that just killed the deal, right? Like a tenant, someone who's renting the property that refuses to pay rent and the buyer has to evict him or something like that. That throws a little wrinkle in there, but you can always overcome that. But my point is if you find what the buyers want, you bring them the deal, the business becomes much easier and you'll sell more deals.
And like you said, if he's giving you a particular buyer's giving you 5 zip codes, you can market into those 5 zip codes, and you can so it just tells you where you're going to go and look. So it gives you a heads up with that. Chris, a question I've got for you: if you could give advice to a new virtual wholesaler with all your experience now, what would be what would it be? What would be the main bit of advice you'd give them?
Yeah. So here's the thing. Real estate is 80 to 90% mindset and around, anywhere from 10 to 20% education. Okay. So number one, I'd recommend getting a coach or mentor so they can guide you on the path. That'll alleviate a lot of that fear that you experience of, oh, what if this, what if that, right? So get a coach or mentor, right? The next thing I would say is you want to focus on taking massive, imperfect, and immediate action. You're never going to have all the information, but you need to have enough to be able to take action and then understand virtual is possible. Okay. So just because in your mind, you're like, a seller's not going to accept an offer over the phone, just trust the experience of others that are telling you, yes, they can. Trust me, I'm telling you it can, because we do it multiple times a month. and just believe that it can happen. And if you believe it, then you'll have no problem getting sellers to accept your offer and or accepting their offer and moving forward, because you understand that you believe virtual is possible. Being virtual is as simple as pulling a list. It's not anything crazy. It's just seller finding out what's important to them, covering their problems they have, and creating a solution with that and a price that makes sense. Done deal. And following a process. That's all it is.
Yeah, so like you say, if you surround yourself with people that are actually virtually wholesaling, like you can jump on Zoom calls because it's all virtual now. Find just someone like you to work with. That the belief starts growing, and then the mindset, and then you get proof of concept, and away you go. I just want to ask you quick questions about
Sure.
like mindset. Do you have any success habits or any rituals that you do every day to work on your mindset, to keep your mind sharp and focused?
Yeah. So what I like to do is I like to read a lot, and so I focus on reading 10 pages a day. And usually, what I like to do is I like to read books based on things that I'm struggling with, or something that I feel like I just really need to improve upon. Find that that's one of the ways that you can really start to enjoy reading. And you want to rotate your selection with books, right? You want to rotate some mindset books, some productivity books, things like that, and you want to commit to that, because that's going to really, really improve your mindset. A book that I've read that's a really great book is The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. That's a great book because it talks about why it's important to be consistent, and how small, consistent daily actions over a long time could equal big results. The One Thing by Gary Keller. That's super important for new investors starting out, because it gets them to focus. And even guys who do this for a long time, that book tells you about what to focus on, because a lot of people, they try to spread themselves too thin, focus on 10 different things. Got to focus on one thing and do it really well. And then outside of that, a great book is Failing Forward by John Maxwell. That's a really important book for investors and just entrepreneurs in general, because a lot of people view failure. They made a mistake. They look at it as like it's negative, but it's actually a learning experience that can help the next step become much easier. So reframing your mindset there, focusing on just following a process, and then seeing it through to the end, being committed and saying, I'm going to get a deal come heck or high water. And that's how deals get done. If you say, I'm going to do this, and if it doesn't work out, I'm going to X, Y, and Z, you've already killed your chances of success. So you want to go into something saying, I'm going to get a deal. Doesn't matter how long I have to work at it. Doesn't matter the time I've put in. I'm going to get a deal, and I'm going to make this happen. And that is where I've seen the most people have the most success.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that you said earlier in the podcast that it took you 6 months to get your first deal. Now, I know a lot of people that are really successful in the business. I've interviewed people, and a lot of them are 6 to 12 months before they got their first deal. And these are highly successful people now, which you would think, wow, I thought you would have gone in your first week the way you are. Yeah. And they said, like you said, they failed forward. They took massive action. They weren't that great, but they just stuck at it and they kept doing it. So all that stuff's mindset, isn't it? And if you can be around people that'll, like-minded people that say, no, it's going to take you a while. I think a lot of people watch a few YouTube videos, go, I'm going to get into this wholesaling thing, especially virtual wholesaling, and think they're going to have a deal within the first week. It's just not realistic. You've got to treat it like a proper business and actually put in the hard work and just have a bit of faith that it's going to come through eventually. And like you said, you're going to make mistakes. And I mean, there's not too many businesses you can jump into and have success in the first 6 months anyway, is there? I mean, like a lot of franchise, you've got to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars just to get into the business before you even start. So it is a great opportunity, and people just need to just slow down and get the right people around them and hold their horses a bit, because, a lot of people get in for a month or 2 months and then they get out because they go, oh, this doesn't work. Well, that's not the case, is it?
Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons why I recommend, if you're going to get into real estate, okay, don't get into real estate for the money. The money will come, right? But you want to get into real estate because you're passionate about real estate in general, and you're passionate about helping people and serving others, right? If you can get into real estate with that mentality, then you will be wildly successful. The people that I see fail are the people like, all I care about is making money. I want to make money, and if I don't make money in my first 30 days, then it's not going to be worth it. I'm going to hop to the next thing. Guess what? These people will do this for 10, 15, 20 years, and they're going to look back on their life, and they're going to be like, shoot, I wasted all that time hopping to so many different things that promised me a quick buck, right? Why didn't I just stick with one thing? the law of averages go into your favor when you stick with one thing, you relentlessly focus on it, and you see it through to the end. Okay. Again, it took me 6 months to get my first deal. There's nothing special about me. I was just very committed, right? I received rejection after rejection after rejection, failure after failure after failure, bumps and bruises, and you're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Why did I do that? Why did I say that to that buyer? Why did I say that to that seller, right? I would say all these things, and it would have been easy for me to quit, right? It would have been very easy for me to quit. I was working a job 60, 70 hours a week. I was traveling back and forth, staying in hotels for what I did for a living before I got into real estate. And I had every reason in the world to quit. But you know what? I was like, man, if I quit now, my future self is going to be really annoyed, right? Because I'm going to continue to be working a job. I'm going to continue doing what I don't want. So now's the time to hustle. Now's the time to put in that activity and see this thing through in, because if I do, I know my future self is going to thank me.
Yeah, and good on you for sticking at it, at you and your wife, and building up a great lifestyle and great business for yourself. So, I mean, because it's pretty challenging, and you don't see that on the flashy YouTube videos and all that sort of stuff, do you? So, you stuck at it. You've built a great business now. Chris, if people want to, network with you, you've got a Facebook group. You've got, you're all over social media. What's the best way? I've got some stuff up on the screen which I can go through, but what's the best way people can get to you, just to connect with you and find out more about what you do?
Yeah, so the platforms that I'm the most active on is Facebook and Instagram, right? I'm on TikTok too, but Facebook and Instagram is the best ways to reach out to me. Instagram is at Chris Logan REI. Facebook is at clogan777. So if you reach out to me on there, happy to connect with you and just see where you're at in the business. You can also join my free Facebook group, Virtual Wholesaling Made Simple. Join the group, network with other like-minded people. There's people in there who've been doing this business for a long time. Some people in there who are just getting started like yourself, if that's you. And, we do live trainings in the group, free trainings in the group once a week on Thursdays on Wednesdays. We changed the schedule. Wednesdays from 11 to noon typically.
Yeah, and I've got the Facebook group up there, Virtual Wholesaling Made Simple. So go to that and jump in. It's a free Facebook group. You've got your profile there. You've also got a website, www.virtualwholesalingmadesimple.com, and I've got your Instagram and TikTok up there. So if anyone's watching and you want to reach out and link up with Chris, all the stuff's there. Just go back and watch the YouTube video and jot it down if you haven't jotted it down now, and just reach out. I mean, 10 years in the virtual wholesaling business, 2 years before it even existed. These are the sort of people you want to get in touch with and get in their groups and find out more stuff and connect with and find like-minded people. So thank you, Chris. That was like a masterclass. That was awesome. I love the way that you just ripped through all the key points. I mean, like I said, the thunderbolts flying everywhere. It was fantastic. And I appreciate you coming in and I mean, there's so much stuff people can go back and watch that, and there's so much content in there because these things are important. And because you've done it, 10 years, you've obviously, it like the back of your hand. So I appreciate you coming in and sharing all that with the audience and the viewers. And I wish you luck in the future. And hopefully I can speak to you in the next 10 years when you make it a 20-year career. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Keep up the work. And that was awesome. And I encourage anyone just to watch that back and just take some notes, because there's some really good information in there. All right, Chris. Great. Thanks again, and we'll clock out. Thank you guys for watching, and if you watch the replay, like I said, all of the contact points are there, and follow Chris, follow him and see what he's up to, because he's always throwing content out there, shorter form content and longer form content. Jump in his Facebook group, and surround yourself with all this information if you want to be successful in a virtual wholesaling career. All right, we're going to sign out. Thank you for joining us at the Thunder from Down Under podcast. And thank you, Chris. We'll catch up with everyone later. Cheers.
Thanks for